The Torah portion today is called Tissa. As I was reading the portion, a hidden theme jumped off the pages at me. And I wrote a few things that, in my understanding, reflected that. For example, there was a house of God and its furnishings, they were completed. The ornamented garments for the Kohanim to wear at an elaborate ceremony. The utensils for them to wash their hands and feet before entering the house. Each person present was anointed for their specific role. The innermost chamber would store the ark containing the pact, or the ketubah, for God's treasured people. The place for intimate conversation in a face-to-face relationship. The marriage contract is ratified, and vows of loyalty are made with the oath. All that you say, we will do. In other words, we said, I do. The picture of the bride, Israel, and the groom, our Creator, at a great wedding unfolds. Then sadly, adultery/idolatry enters the picture, causing another rupture as we saw before in the Garden of Eden. Suffering and death ensue once again, and ultimately the husband forgives and has compassion upon his bride. Now let's look at the details. This is how I saw it. In Exodus 30, verses 11 to 17, we see men who are 20 years and up being counted. This illustrates that they were no longer mere property, as they had been in Egypt. Now they belonged to the Creator, and their value was not measured by status, because rich or poor alike had to bring the same half shekel. There's so many commentaries about this. But in keeping with the marriage theme, I thought, was this perhaps a figurative dowry for the new nation? Then in Exodus 30, verses 18 to 20, the theme continues. We have the excitement of bathing, getting washed and clean, in anticipation of being presented to our husband, ready for the most important day of our lives. In Exodus 30, verses 22 to 25, we have the anointing of the house in which the ark would dwell, the Ochel Moed, the tent of meeting. This would be the place, the house where the ketubah, the 10 Commandments, which was a gift to God to his people. It was prepared to be signed and finalized before the great ceremony. Exodus 31:3. The people, Israel, God's bride, now called out by name and first represented here by Betzalel, are each filled with Ruach Elohim, God's breath, his spirit. Of what? First, b'chokhmah, of wisdom. Then, tvuna, understanding. Da'at, knowledge. Uv'chol melacha, and all manner of work. They would receive gifts from their husband. Wise-heartedness, skills of every kind, guidance in making everything he commanded, the furnishings, garments for their service, holy oil and incense for anointing their new home. Then in verse 13, God begins with the Shabbat. In Jewish mysticism, it's related, it's likened to the bride and expressed in our liturgy Lecha Dodi, symbolizing a sacred, joyful union between the divine presence, the Shekinah, and his people. The Shabbat is a sign that Yud He Vav He, Yehovah, set us apart from all the other nations for a purpose. And anyone who breaks the Shabbat would surely be put to death. The Hebrew expression Mot Yumat, is a legal term for definitive court-imposed capital punishment, not simply, oh, he will die someday. Working on Shabbat was a sign that we didn't trust our new husband, who had promised to provide for us and protect us. It's also seen in other prohibitions in Leviticus 20:10, in which a man commits adultery with another man's wife. Mot yumat hanofef vehanoefet. The adulterer and the adulteress shall surely be put to death. You know, it may come across as being very cruel, that our God is a cruel God, but we need to understand that this was the beginning, the early formation of God's new nation. So strong warnings were crucial to help them understand the devastating consequences of idolatry/adultery. He wanted to turn us away from the death cult practices of their gods and turn toward his life-giving words. In verse 18, God presents his words, his ketubah, to Moses to bring to his nation and ultimately to the rest of the world. The tablets were inscribed by God's own finger, front and back, as a promise to protect his chosen bride and to cover us, kaper, front and back. The chuppah comes from the same root as kaper. The chuppah, the wedding, would cover a couple as they made their vows. And once married, there would be no adultery. That is, Israel the bride would not run after other gods. What occurred next was the greatest rupture of trust, the sin of the golden calf, and Israel's return to idolatry. Aaron represents everyone who, naively or not, could not acknowledge and cannot acknowledge their wrongdoings, but instead blame others. This takes us right back to the garden, where the first husband, Adam, blamed his wife, Eve, who then blamed the serpent, and ultimately they both blamed God. When faced with this shame, Aaron did what most of us do, try to cover it up, their own method of kaper. But only God can provide the ultimate cover. He covered Adam and Eve's nakedness as he has been covering mankind ever since. That takes us back to the half shekel at the beginning of this parasha. It's called kofer nefesh, the covering, kaper, kofer, for our soul, nefesh. God is asking us to respond to the same question he asked Adam: where are you? When we can admit to God where we are in our lives, that's when we begin to be restored. Moses saw what the people had done, and that his brother Aaron, the man who had been with him every step of the way, had been manipulated by the people. In a rage, he ordered the Levites to go throughout the camp and slay their own brothers, their best friends, and their closest neighbors. That was Mot Yimat. 3,000 died at the hands of the Levites that day, and even more when the plague broke out. That's the high cost of adultery/idolatry to this day. God threatened to annihilate the people. That's how serious this was. But Moses begged God to blot his name from God's book instead of them. But what did God respond? Whoever has sinned against me, him will I blot from my book. These are powerful words, and they mean no one can pay for your sin or mine. God is telling us that we are each responsible for our actions. And if God, who is merciful and compassionate, was ready to annihilate us, why would it surprise us when human beings want to? God created this earth and everything in it as a gift for his bride. But today, the earth is sick and slowly dying as wars are ravaging the earth. Our health is rapidly deteriorating. Younger and younger people are dying from designed diseases and suffering from confusion about what is truth. Even the animal kingdom is in distress. Those of us who know God are pleading with him to restore the vows of his ancient marriage to his people. Next, God told Moses that he would go no further with them. The 10 Commandments, the Ketubah, the pact between God and his bride, was shattered when Moses broke the tablets. He was divorcing the people who had become faithless. The people were told to strip themselves of their ornaments to reflect the desecration of the beautiful jewels on the garment of Aaron, like those on a magnificent wedding dress. The elaborate wedding was forgotten because he had placed a golden face upon God's face, despite God's warning to them in the first commandments to have no other gods. But in Hebrew, it doesn't say have no other gods. It says, Lo hihyeh lecha Elohim acharim al panai. You shall not place any other gods to cover my face. God listened to the pleas of his servant Moses to save his people. And a pillar of cloud descended and stood at the door of the tent of meeting, where he spoke with Moses face to face. Moses didn't desire to cover the face of the Creator with his. He was willing to listen to him. How many of us are truly willing to listen to the voice of God? Listening is very different than telling him. The people didn't want to listen to God speaking his 10 Commandments at Mount Sinai. They preferred to hear these words from the lips of Moses, like those of us today who prefer to hear the Torah interpreted by a human instead of going directly to the words written down by Moses, our great teacher. Are we willing to turn our faces toward him, listen to him, and trust him no matter what? When Moses left the tent of meeting, a simple sentence follows. But his servant Joshua, the son of Nun, a Na'ar, a lad, did not leave the tent. It's interesting that the next words from Moses are, you have not let me know whom you sent with me. How often are the young, quiet, yet faithful overlooked? Joshua was like the best man at the wedding, but Moses did not see him. He only had eyes for the bride, the people of Israel. Now another ketubah would have to be written, but the only thing that changed was the tablets. And Moses would have to work to carve the second set of stones and carry them up the mountain. Just as Adam, after breaking faith with God, would have to now struggle to work the land. The pictures in the Torah are breathtakingly beautiful and keep reappearing in never-ending cycles until humanity will one day get the picture. God would write his same commandments on new stones. The words didn't change, only the vehicle that held them. When he came down the mountain a second time, Moses didn't know that his face was shining causing the people to be afraid of approaching them. Do you know that those who are willing to listen to the light will reflect it? You and I we are standing today at another crossroads in history, with the Western world being a modern-day Rome. If we, the bride, were to finally and fully turn to our husband, Yud He Vav He, throw away all our idolatry and adultery, and trust him instead of another nation or man-made systems, no one and nothing could harm us. We have trusted what we can see with the naked eye long enough, but our Creator is invisible, and He's waiting for His bride to do teshuvah, to turn to Him. He never forces us, and He's very patient, and He's a loving husband. The good news is that there is hope, as we read in Isaiah 54, verses 4 to 8. He said, "Fear not, for you shall not be ashamed, nor confused, for you shall not be put to shame. And you shall forget the shame of your youth, and you shall no longer remember the reproach of your widowhood. For your Maker is your husband. Adonai Tzevaot is his name, and your Redeemer, the Holy One of Israel. He is called the God of the whole earth. For the Lord has called you as a woman forsaken and grieved in spirit. But a wife of youth, can she be rejected, declares your God? For a small moment have I forsaken you, but with great compassion I will gather you. In overflowing anger I hid my face from you only for a moment. But with everlasting kindness will I have mercy on you, declares God, your Redeemer." Ki Tissa is a wonderful picture of the wedding between God and His people. When will we be ready to be faithful and to trust God, our husband? Shabbat Shalom. So there were many, many, many elements I saw of describing the marriage of God being the groom and Israel being his bride. But one of the things that I didn't discuss in the message, because I wanted to keep it to a certain amount of time, was that there's something that sets us apart in our community from the rest of the synagogues in Judaism. And I'd like to read something that I wrote as well that would just elaborate on who we are. I wrote, like Joshua or Yehoshua, another Na'ar, another young lad many years later, with a name very similar to his, would arise in Israel for such a time as his. His name was Yeshua. Like Moses, he held the commandments very close to his heart. And like Joshua, he had the courage of a warrior. He stood up to the religious and political powers, the factions of his day, and was willing to go to his death if he had to, like Isaac, in order to fulfill his purpose on earth. He was willing to listen. He wanted Israel to return to being the bride that she was called to be, a faithful wife who would turn away from the idolatry/adultery of Rome and return to her God-given role of being Or L'Goyim, a light to the nations. The bride today, as we see it, as he helped us to understand, and what our rabbi would speak about, involves what's called the Commonwealth of Israel. We consist of the native-born Israelites, like Joshua, who love God, and Moses, together with the Ger, those who are like Caleb and Ruth, who turned away from idolatry, adultery, and turned to the one God of Israel. And I read in Matthew Now, just the way the tablets were, the stones themselves had to be remade, the words on them were not changed. So our rabbi would always say the New Testament had nothing to do with being a New Testament. It had to do with it was the same covenant being rewritten on a new scroll. So, and he wrote in Matthew 19 some see, because it was talking about the concept of marriage. The whole concept of marriage has been adulterated today. And Matthew 19 says, some Pharisees came to test him. They asked, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any and every reason? Haven't you read, he replied, that at the beginning the Creator made them male and female? And for this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man separate. We often hear that. But sadly, too many people are joined together by other people, by even themselves. They married for the wrong reasons, for selfish reasons. But when God joins two people, nothing will take them apart. And we see that in marriage. You know, it's hard to have a relationship with someone we can't see or touch. Our God is invisible. But as we recently read in the book of Esther last week on Purim, he is seen in the results of those who are chosen for the times in which we live. Like Esther was chosen for such a time as this. And in the same way, Mordecai pleaded with Esther to do the right thing so that her people would not be annihilated. Her predecessor Moses also pleaded with God, who threatened to annihilate his newly formed nation and form another one from Moses. Both Esther and Moses stepped up to the plate. And I ask myself, am I willing to step up to the plate? And another thing I saw in this parasha, there's no shedding of blood to stop the death wreaked by plague in this awesome transaction. It was God's way of covering them instead of human ways that began with Adam. So there were a lot of pictures that I saw in this parasha. It's such a powerful one. I was so excited. I didn't even know how to contain myself. I was so excited writing it. So, Mauricio, you didn't say anything when you read it. What is your opinion about it today?
Well, I like the way that you see the ketubah. This is the most important day when the bride and groom are are, are commencing a new life. Okay, and what there is a deception. Okay, from the groom, because on the other side they look for idolatry. Okay, and I believe that that's something that happened today. Okay, because it's so easy to become a, a person who follows idolatry. Probably not as, you know, probably not as they used to be idolaters, because they have some totems and some statues, things like that.
But let's look at what idolatry is today, because I think that's a very important point. Because yes, there are statues. You see them in certain cultures. They call them totems. And they put figures of some of their gods. If you go to India, you'll see that those are very typical. Something very, they put faces on their gods so that they can be seen. And we see them everywhere. But there are other things that are idolatry. Can you think of some?
Yeah. For example, the fur is idol. I okay,
Interesting.
right? Myself. uh, when we start to think first me, second me, third me, and if there is another phase, it's me. That is something that I assume you are the center of your own life.
Yes.
Okay. Also, uh, there are another things that can replace that. For example, culture.
Culture.
Okay,
Yes.
because for example, when I see woke societies, when I see these
What?
kind
Oh,
of
the woke societies?
woke woke societies,
Yes.
yeah, as well. For example, when I start to believe, oh, I go against the word of God. Okay, for example, I believe in homosexuality. I believe in
What did you
I
say?
don't know,
Sexuality?
homosexuals. Okay,
Homosexuality, yes, and
okay,
transgenderism.
transgender and things like that. For example, or this kind of agenda like abortion is allowed. Okay, things like are against God's word. That is a kind of idolatry.
Right.
Okay, you are following another God contrary to our God.
Yes.
Okay,
And gold.
our God is, yeah, our God is a God of full life.
Yes.
And if we go against that God that is full of life, then you are following another God. Even though, because, for example, I can tell you, I cannot understand, for example, Bernie Sanders. He's Jewish, okay?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, he's Jewish,
Yes.
and how he can blame Israel for attacking Iran, for example.
Yeah.
So things like that is something that makes you feel that his agenda is more than the God of his parents. Okay,
Yes.
uh, so
So believe
even
it or not, even George Soros is Jewish.
yeah,
There are
George Soros is Jewish.
Yes, there was
Yeah,
another man, I can't remember, and they're making a big deal today out of Epstein. He's Jewish.
yeah,
Yeah, and someone even said that he was a spy. I'm not sure if that is true or not. It's very possible, but they make a big deal of it. And there was another. I can't remember his name. He was an ambassador to Israel many years ago. Same ideas. They we turn away from our own God and we turn to the gods, the systems of the world, the political system, the system of gold. Gold is more important. Money is more important. Yes, Richard.
No, finish your thought. I've got something to say.
Go ahead.
Okay, about that Matthew 19 thing.
Yes.
Okay, um, it bothers me because there that Yeshua said that Moses permitted them to divorce because of the hardening of their hearts. Okay, um, okay, that bothers me. All
Why?
right,
What
why?
bothers you about it? Yeah.
It so it doesn't make sense. Okay, okay, it's okay. I mean, it's kind of forget that. I mean, it just bothers me. It just seems as if it was written to make certain people look bad. Okay, I mean, how come he didn't say that God gave them the Ten Commandments because of the hardening of their hearts? Um, okay, but
But my point there, by saying just reading those verses were about divorce, because God hates divorce. It talks about that in Malachi. He hates divorce. It doesn't say we can't divorce. Christianity changed Yeshua's words, but in this case, it was just to point out that sometimes we don't marry for the right reasons. It's not who God brings together. We bring ourselves together because we marry for the wrong reasons.
Okay, I won't go there. Okay, so the next thing is about idols. All
Yes.
right.
Yes.
Okay, now there's a difference between idolatry and having symbols, having figures or something. We don't do it in Judaism.
Yes, we do.
Okay,
I beg
fine.
to differ, and I'm going to tell you when. There are people who will walk into a home, and if they don't touch or kiss the mezuzah, they think they're going to have bad luck.
Okay, fine. That's okay. So here's the thing. There's been a lot of scholarship in the 20th century about that. Okay, and people seem to like to have an ornament or an amulet to in order to refer to something else. Okay? I mean, we as Jews, I was led to believe growing up that certain people who worshipped a figure of a man on a cross were practicing idol worship. And
But
then,
it's true.
okay, it's okay, uh, okay. Except the scholarship has it that there's something called a transcendent referent. Okay, I mean it's a fancy word. Okay, so in other words, yes, there is a physical piece of furniture or an amulet, but it is used as a reminder. Okay, it's used to conjure up an image of something beyond. All right. Okay, it's not like thinking that worshiping a piece of stone will, in and of itself, is the stone itself, for example, has something intrinsic to it. Okay, it's you. Okay, so I have a more accepting understanding of people who use amulets or symbols, even the mezuzah on the door thing. All right, I have a more okay. Let's just say about the mezuzah on the door. Okay, that's referring to something in the Torah of about what comes after the Shema. Okay, you should post it on your doorpost and
Right.
so on and so forth. So some people like to refer to that in their head. All right, so what? Okay, it's
No,
not like
no, I agree with you. I'm not against doing that. It's what I'm saying is our heart has always to put God first, not these things. I'm just looking at the situation going on in the world. And I know maybe I'm a little too black and white and a little too strict when it comes to that, Richard. And if I come across as too harsh, but I read these words almost with trepidation that because we, Israel, were chosen to be an example to the rest of the nations. And to those who are given much, much is required. We are responsible, like we as parents are responsible to the example we give to our kids. So I don't know if I'm being clear. I don't mean it's not to put down people. It's to help us raise ourselves up to a higher standard because we represent something very important to the world, which is our God. He's not only the God for the nation of Israel, but for all nations, the whole world. So if things are going crazy around the world, we have to examine ourselves. What are we doing? It's been like this all since our creation, the formation of this new nation. I can't hear you. You're on mute.
Okay, I'd like to hear other subjects. Okay, I will mute myself.
Okay. Okay, Mauricio, continue. Maybe you can bring a little bit of,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Then we have traditions that are a kind of idolatry, as you mentioned.
tradition.
The as you
Right.
say, and even Yeshua talk about it.
Right.
You put the traditions because there are many things that are not written in the Torah and are not commanded by God, but are interpretation of the sages.
Right.
And and then we put these traditions beyond the Torah.
Right.
And first,
A rabbi would say, if a tradition brings you closer to God, good, do it. A tradition to put the mezuzah on the door. We're coming up to Pesach. There are many traditions around Pesach. There are people who have two kitchens, a completely separate kitchen with completely separate dishes, and two fridges. This goes so far beyond what God is asking us at Pesach, which is do not eat leaven, which represents pride. So it's when we go crazy over it and make people crazy, then what are we doing? We're taking people away
yeah,
from God.
yeah, in these traditions, honestly, makes the life harder
Yeah.
for all those who wants to 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 be or their lives with God, and instead to become closer to God, the people go far away.
Yes.
Um, an example, for example, in my country, there's no kosher food. There's no halal food. Okay, so I had to eat, chicken, meat, or even fish. And what will happen to me if, for example, if there is no kosher seal food? So I have to go to the scriptures and see what is allowed to eat and what is not, and then make my diet. But I don't have the resources, for example, to import all my food. I will need a storage uh, extra in my house, very expensive. So what happened to many Jewish people here in Central America? They believe Judaism because they cannot follow the rules. They
But
don't
what
have enough money.
but what does the Torah say about kosher? First of all,
Yeah,
Torah, the word kosher doesn't exist.
yeah,
And what did Rabbi teach us? He says the foods, God chose certain animals which were brought to him, which gave us the ability to approach him. Do we need those animals to approach God today? No. We can approach God. He says, do not eat blood, the shedding of blood, because life is in the blood. These are symbolic things. So, what you can do is you take, like my grandmother would do, or like I would do, is you take salt and you make sure all the blood is out. And
yeah,
that's what he said. The idea of do not eat milk and meat was an idolatrous practice. It had nothing to do with milk and meat. Abraham, we see this with Abraham. When the messengers came, he took cheese and bread and milk and meat and served it to the messengers, the angels of God. So this is very difficult for people to look at because we rely on what other people have said about the Torah instead of reading it for ourselves and looking at the bigger picture.
yeah. And then also there are people who we put before God. Okay, for example, there are some leaders, extraordinary leaders that I don't know why, but humanity It's like they need some leaders. They don't listen the message of the leaders, and they put the leaders to in a higher position
Right.
even than God. Okay,
Yeah.
because if the leader said something that is twisted or the interpretation is forced to do things, then they follow the leader instead to follow God,
Right.
God's word.
Exactly.
Um, you know, I it's interesting that on these days there is a such called apostle, okay,
Yes.
that came into El Salvador. He is Salvadorian. He came from Honduras, and inside the car he had a boy, okay, inside a bag, okay.
A
That
boy?
is very a boy inside a bag, supposedly to hide the boy, okay, and he was minor age, okay,
Oh,
and he came. This apostle came with another girl that was not his wife,
oh,
okay, supposedly a prophetess, something like that.
prophet.
Uh, uh, yeah, of the church, and you can see how people looking, you know, kidnapping, looking, trafficking with minors, cheating his wife, and things like that. People go to jail to follow the leader. That's idolatry.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
Okay, you follow this man because he said supposedly I am who receives the God's word, and no matter if I am not a good person, he will find any excuse to their people to excuse the sins he
Right.
committed.
Right.
And this is something that for all religions, I mean, here because we are Christians in Salvador, most people, 99.9% is Christian. So, but I believe honestly that in Israel, for example, there are so many Jewish doing like things like that. Uh, in Arab countries, many imams doing things like that.
Yeah.
So, in why? Because the problem of idolatry is that we need to see, we
Right.
need to touch, we
Right.
need, it is our senses governing us. Okay. And the problem is that you go to the sanctuary and the sanctuary is empty. There is nothing, just air.
Right.
Okay. And there is no light, is darkness. Okay. Um, and so that is something that, you know, why God decided to hide Moses, Aaron, and I believe that also Miriam's bodies, because if not today, there will be a pilgrim place, a place for pilgrims to make a cult
Yeah.
for
Exactly.
all of them.
Well, they
Okay.
do. There are very Orthodox rabbis who have their followings, their students, who make a pilgrimage to their every year their burial sites.
Yeah, they go
Right.
to
This
Ukraine,
rabbi,
even
yeah,
though there is missiles there. They go to the
yeah,
Reve to the tomb. Okay,
exactly, yeah,
so um, in you know, and also uh, money, obviously, and work, um, also studies. There are so many easy things, okay, to replace our God.
right,
Eh, and the problem is that there are things that are from outside that is good, okay, that the person is doing right, but at the end, you can see what is all your day about, and you can see what are your priority. Okay.
Exactly. If you look, there are people who will sit on their computers all day long looking at the stock market, selling, buying. The stock market has become an idol. There are people who are fully involved in health systems, systems that are idolatry. God says, if you will follow me, you'll obey me. All the diseases that I put upon Egypt I will take away from you. God is the solution for everything, but we don't have the because we can't see him and we don't have a way of leading to him that's visible. It's so difficult for us today. So each of us have to find that way within ourselves. How how do we find how to obey God today? What do we do? And that's each of us are called by name, like he called Bezalel, he called Aholiab. He's given each of us gifts, and we have to go to him in the quietness of our hearts, like when we're coming up to Pesach. For many people, this time before Pesach is a very difficult time. There's a lot of spiritual upheaval, a lot of things that we're going to help cleanse our hearts, to help cleanse ourselves. We can go directly to him today. And that's our challenge. How do we do this? We don't hear God in the thunder and like on Mount Sinai, but we hear him in the stillness of our hearts. Sometimes we just have to find that place, shut everything down, and be quiet, listen, read his word, and let him speak to us instead of running for other people to speak to us for him. And we're all afraid to do that, but we need to do that.
Yeah, that's during these days I've been, because I remember that sometimes when I pray, okay, I didn't close the eyes, but now I have understood that probably that will be a very good idea, because that disconnects you
Right,
from all the distractions around you.
right,
Okay. And then you can open your ear.
right. We
Okay.
don't always, it's like we said, he wants us to listen. We're so busy telling God what we want, what we need, who we are, do this, do that. But we forget to listen. Those words were so important.
Yeah.
Be
And
still.
and and, and so and also there is something else that I would like to, you know, God, honestly, uh he's trying to, because I was thinking this question: why, God, you allowed to Moses to destroy the tablets? Uh, Supposedly, if there is something that was written by God's hands,
True.
okay, why you allowed to Moses? And also came to my mind that it was not God who breaks the tablets.
Right,
It was the man
right,
who broke the tablets.
right.
And then this is so wonderful, because after this idolatry moment, okay, God reestablished the relationship with Israel, and made Moses now to write, okay, to write the tablets, okay.
Did he write
Uh,
them? Did he just
about,
carve them? Didn't God,
sorry,
did he write? I don't remember that he wrote them. Did he? Or because I know he had to carve the tablets before God handed him the tablets.
yeah,
He
he
had to
had to
carve them
carve it.
and walk up with them. It's like the rupture, the first rupture,
Yeah,
like Adam's rupture. And then he
yeah,
worked the land. But it says Moses wrote them?
Yeah. For me, he wrote, okay, because uh, because Moses, that is something interesting. Okay, there is one explanation that God allowed to destroy the covenant. I would say the contract of the Whedon.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
because if not, he will not break it. Then Israel will be guilty and receive legally the divorce. Okay, right
Right.
now there is not seal. I would say there is no sign. uh, there is no contract right now. So that gave the opportunity to reborn. Okay, that gave the opportunity to remarry. Okay, that is some idea. Okay,
But
that I really like.
didn't we say all that you say we will do? It's like saying I do to God. Like we are married.
Yeah,
It is ratified.
yeah, that is what it works. But it's like before the law, after you sign a contract of matrimony,
Right.
then you are married.
Right.
Yes, you can say before yes, okay. And probably many people, had relations, intimate relations prior matrimony. But before the court, before the judgment, before the the government, you are not married. In practice, yes, you are.
Right. That's true.
Okay,
Yeah.
so and that is very important. I don't know if in the United States or Canada, but here in El Salvador, I have seen many people trying not to sign the contracts. Okay,
With the
to
government.
get married with the government.
Yeah, here
So
they
in the documents in your ID, it
right.
doesn't say married; it says
Oh,
single.
oh,
And that's something that is not right before God's eye. Okay, because here there is a companion of life. They call
yes.
themselves like
Here,
that.
because because of the influence of the Catholic Church, we have that here in Quebec too. The influence was so strong, and the Catholic Church did not allow divorce. They just didn't get married. They just lived together.
Yeah, they live together.
Yeah.
But you know what happened when the man, and because I have seen many cases, when the man died, the widow is unprotected.
Oh, well, here they made a law that even I think if you're living with someone 6 months, it's as if you're married, that you have the same rights.
Yeah, but you need to prove.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when there is a person there, not in life, when you are there, many beloved ones appear because they want your assets.
Right.
Okay. In your life, nobody, you
Wow.
know, they never visit you once, okay?
Right.
But they go because I have seen that people cry in the courts,
Oh,
okay? And they are good actors and actresses,
yeah.
okay?
No.
But they didn't have any relation. But because if there is no testament, so the law says, at least here in El Salvador, okay, the asset goes to the closest relatives, okay, mother, brothers, then cousins, uncles, and okay. And if there is no legal proof that you can prove that you were together with that person, then you are unprotected. I
Wow.
have seen many people. they have to leave El Salvador to go to United States to restart their lives because the relatives took the assets. Okay,
Oh,
that is something that if I have the opportunity, I tell to people, get married,
right,
protect your wife.
right,
Okay,
right,
and yes, why they don't want to protect the wife? Because they said, oh no, she will change. Right now she wants to chase me. and, and if we get married, then uh, she will not be interested on me, things like that.
right,
That is chauvinism. But anyway, um so in this case, yeah, Israel said yes, God said yes, there is a contract, and legally they will marry.
right,
Okay. But the contract was not given, was broken.
right,
So they need to rewrite
right,
the contract. Okay. It's like erase the old one and make a new one
right.
for the groom and bride.
Okay.
Okay. So in also uh the second one, yes, was written by God, but carved by Moses.
Right,
Okay, so that is something that is interesting, because when the relationship is broken, okay, because of the mistakes we make, the 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 new relation with God requires human action. Okay. In the first case, God made the tablets. Okay. He grind them, uh, and it's a gift. It's is something that is pure love. But yes, when you make a mistake, then you need to repair. You need to fix it, and there is needed your participation, active participation. Okay. So and that's why probably God told to Moses, come, we will give. And also there is something that Moses is worried about God's reputation, because he said, oh God, please, and remember the reluctant leader. Probably this is also for Moses, to activate Moses as a leader of
right,
Israel.
right.
Uh, and so many things that we can say about this portion. And also, we can see during the days that Israel was falling in idolatry many times, and that is something that uh, at that time they wanted to, because there is no phones, there is no stream, things like that, internet, and they wanted to practice other gods, religion. Why? Because there was the privacy on those religion, deprivation, sexual deprivation. Um, in this supposedly religion, Judaism, there is no moral deprivation, okay, allowed. We need to respect, okay. We have limits, so we need a balance, okay.
Exactly.
And obviously they wanted the other religions, because there I can drink a lot. There I can have sex with someone and it's allowed. And the other I can eat whatever I want. Okay. So it seems that yes, that's why probably those religions were very popular among Israelites.
But they don't realize
They,
that they lead to death because they're all death cults.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
God offers us life, and that's
yeah,
the difference. And, that whole idea of mochumat, you shall surely be put to death, was a warning for us because that's
yes,
exactly what would happen when I ran after all those other cultic practices. And I did it in my life. My life, I almost died, and my family,
yeah,
my children. So that's why I'm so strong about it, because I saw firsthand what it can do. And then when you take that out into the world is dying. It's a sick world right now. And it begins with us. We have a high responsibility. Those who God called, the Mauricios, the Peggys, the Betzalels, the Aholiab, the people who are been given special gifts, we have been called to a higher standard. Israel, and we make up Israel today. We make up the
yeah,
Commonwealth of Israel. Like Rav Shaul says, not just because you're born into Israel doesn't mean you are. You can be cut off. The branch can be cut off very easily from the root of the tree, which is God. So these portions are so important. Our Torah is so important. So, anything else? Richard says the Catholic Church has a bigger problem with remarrying. Yes, and that has spread into the regular church today. You can, if a person wants to be a pastor, they cannot ever have been married. There are organizations you can't belong to. You can murder somebody, but and repent and become a pastor, but you can't divorce and become a pastor. It's too unbalanced right now. It's crazy. So, anything else, Mauricio? Is that I think we've completed a lot of our thoughts. Miriam is not here. She went to a very difficult party that she had to go to today, and we need to pray for her. We pray Yannette gets well. We have a lot of praying to do for our community, for our people, for the world. And let us be like Moses, where we put ourselves into the Torah and reflect light. Like Yeshua said, do not hide your light under a bushel, under a barrel, but let your light shine among men so that they may see your good works and glorify our God in heaven. So let us go out into the world and do that. I wish you all a Shabbat Shalom, and have a wonderful week. May we be obedient in every moment to what our God is calling us to do.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
Shabbat Shalom.
shalom. Shabbat shalom.